The purpose of the presentation that I wanted to give to the peer conference is to discuss planning and delivering community infrastructure in an urban renewal setting. Urban renewal is not particularly new. It's new in Australia, relatively speaking. It's known in other jurisdictions, of course, as urban revitalisation and urban regeneration. In Australia, we see a bit more of it happening in more recent years as Australia moves away from its more traditional manufacturing base, where there's a lot of companies have moved offshore, which has meant that there are large areas of land that were formerly industrial and light industry that can now have a change of use. There might be a repurposing of them to a mixed-use development that will include commercial aspects, and include houses and dwellings, etc. Many of these sites in Victoria are on the edges of the city and on the fringes of the city, which is something that makes them very attractive for people to want to move into. But of course they do need to have infrastructure and community infrastructure as part of the regeneration process. So what I really wanted to talk about in particular is, why is the planning and delivery of community infrastructure so important? Why do we need to deal with urban renewal areas differently to greenfield areas? Why is the state government involved in this process? What is in this for local governments? And finally, the fact that this work can go on to inform infrastructure contribution plans and developer contribution plans that are vital aspects of an urban renewal site. The Victorian Planning Authority has a lot of experience in this space, particularly going back to when we were the Growth Areas Authority, where we were responsible for growth area planning in the growth area councils in the state of Victoria. And through that work, we've developed quite a library of work that informs these processes. As an example, we have our precinct structure planning guidelines that detail how precinct structure planning will be done. We have practice notes such as developing non-government schools in greenfield areas. We have a publication, for example, Guide to Social Infrastructure Planning and Planning for Community Infrastructure in Growth Areas. And while these are well regarded in the planning field in Victoria, and they get well used at panel hearings where planning scheme amendments are happening for a change of use, or even used in VCAT where appeals are being heard, they don't work particularly well in the urban renewal setting. I'd just like to use one illustration to point out why that is the case. In greenfields planning, we would plan for one primary school for every 3,000 dwellings, and a primary school has a site requirement of 3.5 hectares. If we were to think about an urban renewal site of, say, 20 hectares, and you might ultimately have somewhere between 10 to 15,000 dwellings going to be built there, that would equate to in the order of 5 schools. If you take that metric of 5 schools and 3.5 hectares, you end up with a need for schools alone of 17.5 hectares. Clearly not leaving enough land to actually undertake any urban renewal at all. So the work that we've done at the VPA has indicated to us that you need to think about the legacy infrastructure that is already there. There will already be schools in the area. There will be maternal and child healthcare buildings, as an example. There might be surrounding libraries. And so there will be, this infrastructure can be used better and can be used more widely. And the way that can be done is, one mechanism is through infrastructure contribution plans and development contribution plans. One example that might be, if you have a oval and open space in the area, you can have lights installed so that the oval can be used outside of normal daylight hours. You might have that contribution plan contributing towards the construction of a new sports pavilion, or through upgrades to irrigation systems, etc. So there's a number of ways that this work can be done. We've a great history of, as I say, through the Victorian Planning Authority, of planning in these urban renewal sites. We have a large number of them around the area of Melbourne, and we certainly have a lot of lessons that we learn that can be put into practice at the conference. This is designed as a snapshot just to show you and explain the work that we've done at the Victorian Planning Authority. The conclusion that I'd just like to leave you with is that poorly managed urban renewal and growth can result in additional pressure on community infrastructure. However, through integrated service planning, asset management to better understand the capacity of infrastructure, understanding the existing and likely social needs of the community, collaborating on agreed priorities and a spatial response, and ultimately informing developer contributions will all lead to far better outcomes in the urban renewal space. Thank you.